Hello everyone, this will be my recap of the first season of The Devil's Hour. Alright, let's go. To really understand the story, we had to start with this guy by the name of Gideon. You see, Gideon here quickly realized when he was a kid that life is a time loop. Anytime he dies, no matter how old or young, he restarts at his birth, while at the same time remembering what happened. He comes to this realization after his father takes him and his brother's life over and over again. Eventually, Gideon gets sick of it and takes out his father. He then runs away but uses the time loop to his advantage, like being able to make money really easily because he knows exactly who the winner is. But that's not what drives Gideon. What drives Gideon is the fact that there's a lot of evil in the world and he can witness them all. So he sets out on a path to stop as many as he can. This goal is as rough as it sounds. It essentially means that he has to witness or know the details of a crime, unalive himself, and then age back to the point where he knows the crime happens. And only around then can he actually stop it. And he's probably done this thousands of times.
He's very dedicated.
And sometimes, more often than not, he has to resort to murder. This means that he's a criminal himself, so now the cops are looking for him. Eventually, he's caught by Detective Ravi Dillon, who always catches him in each one of his lives. Eventually, on his second most recent life, he's caught by Detective Ravi and potentially Lucy, our main character. I say potentially because we don't know for sure. You see, Lucy, after listening to Gideon's story after he was caught by the police, visits Gideon some 30 years later and tells him that if what he says is true, when he starts his next loop, he should save her mother from taking her own life. Which is exactly what Gideon does. So when the loop restarts, he saves her mother from taking her own life with a shotgun at 3:33 in the morning. But this causes Lucy to have nightmares that lead her to wake up every morning at 3:33 on the dot, which is also known as the Devil's Hour.
Oh my god, that's why they call it that.
Anyways, Lucy grows up and gets married to this piece of work by the name of Mike, and has this little boy by the name of Isaac, who essentially can't feel emotions and does exactly what he's told. And that's where the series begins, where Lucy goes throughout her daily life subtly remembering the future. And that's the best way to put it because she remembers her past life probably as a detective because she remembers all of these deaths that happened near her, which would explain why somebody like Lucy would remember the details that she remembers of these crimes. Anyways, what eventually happens is that Isaac gets kidnapped by Gideon, which leads to Detective Dillon and Lucy working together to try to find her son Isaac, who ended up being found just as quickly as he disappeared. Actually, he was never taken. What actually happened to Isaac is that he disappeared into a different timeline. The reason for this is that Isaac was never previously born in any previous timeline, so he's not bound to any particular timeline, which means that he can switch between all the different timelines as he pleases or by accident, which is the case for his disappearance. Lucy and Ravi didn't know this until they caught and questioned Gideon, who essentially told them exactly what I said in the first half of this video. Until he got to the point where he said that Isaac is a husk who can't feel anything because he doesn't have a soul. That's when Lucy storms out and heads home to see her son Isaac, who at the time was being watched by her despicable father, Mike. You see, Mike really doesn't like Isaac. This is because Lucy pours all of her attention and emotions into Isaac, who doesn't reciprocate any of them. This leads to the marriage between Mike and Lucy falling apart. But Mike would do anything to get back in Lucy's good graces. So he essentially volunteers himself as a babysitter even though he should not be left alone with Isaac. But nobody knows this except us. And I really do mean that Mike hates Isaac. This leads to Isaac starting a fire in the house, Mike witnessing this and closing the door to let Isaac burn to death.
He's the worst sucking scum I have ever seen.
But before Isaac starts this fire, he calls his mother for the first time and tells her that he loves her, which is something he has never said before. But by the time Lucy gets home from questioning Gideon, the house is on fire and Isaac is nowhere to be seen. So Lucy rushes into the house to try to find Isaac and essentially dies in the house. But in doing so, she wakes up to the fact that there's different timelines and loops, which is what Gideon told her that she needed to do if she wanted to remember her life. The season then ends with a cop version of Lucy watching the house burn in a different timeline with a different family. And yeah, I hope I answered all of your questions, but if I didn't, be sure to leave a comment. I read them all. Also, if you liked that video and want to see more like it, leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And if you like The Devil's Hour, you may like this show right here. That's it.